Can people on Zoom hear me?
Yes.
People on Zoom, can you hear me okay? Great. Thank you so much, Ray. All right, everybody. Give me just one more minute. I think we've almost got all the technology in place. It is so wonderful to see all your faces and to be in person with so many of you. I'm Dr. A, and welcome to DH 101. And we'll get started in just a second here. So I think we've almost got it all sorted. Okay. This is looking good. This is looking good. Great. Okay. So welcome to DH 101. I really believe in accessibility. So I will have my slides with notes posted on the Canvas before each class. You can find them there right now if you want to. Everything I'm saying today, I have written out in the notes. So if you need to double check, feel free to do that. I know it may be hard to hear me with this mask on. I did get a special mask that you can sort of see through to try to help with communication. And I know this is difficult to do with masks, but I appreciate everybody's support in all of this in such a big class. We also have a Zoom option. I think most of you are aware of that now. Feel free to take advantage of that at any time. It's really whatever your comfort level is. And when we meet in person in labs, it's a lot more intimate. You'll actually get to know one another, but believe it or not, we will get to know each other in this class. Let's take a look together now, just so you know where you can find them, the notes and the collaborative notes and the slides for today. Let's see if I can navigate over here before we start the quiz. Quickly. There we go. So if you log into Canvas, right, you'll want to check out modules, and you'll head down to today, right, week 1, Tuesday, and you'll be able to find week 1 collaborative notes right here, the meeting ID for if you want to join via Zoom. You'll have the slides here, as well as the collaborative notes, and that will give you a link in the collaborative notes to our slides for today as well. And just to quickly go over what's there in our weekly notes, right? You'll have the lecture slide link. You'll have a place to enter in questions, because I can't always keep my eye on the Zoom chat in the same way that I would if I was teaching over Zoom. You can always add questions there throughout the lecture. If I don't get to them during the lecture, I'll try to answer them right after class. Also, that'll be where links for in-class activities, things like that, you can find them there. We'll be looking at some DH projects later on today. Those are linked there. And also assignment reminders, right? That's always going to be available on the Canvas, but you'll also have assignment reminders in this document. I'll also ask people to volunteer to be our student written lecture note taker. So feel free to add to these notes down below. And if you do take notes, list your name, and that way you can earn extra credit points. But it's a really wonderful way to contribute to one another's learning through collaborative note taking. You all will gain different insight from the things that I'm saying in this class, from the things that your TAs are saying, from what you're reading. It's really helpful to sort of collaborate and put all those thoughts together in one place. All right. Let's jump back to, pardon my email. Here we go. Okay. So with that, let's find out how closely you reviewed the syllabus for today. And no, this is not a graded quiz, but it will help clarify some points, and it'll draw attention to some points that we really want you to understand about the syllabus. So as a reminder, please fill out the Getting to Know You survey on Canvas under week 0. It's a way for us to get to know you. We really want to do that. And also, again, those links are all on the Canvas site to everything we'll be referring to today. So first and foremost, this should, oh, the best laid plans. Come on. Not sure why. Let me X out of this and try one more time. This should be an interactive quiz. So 1 second. Huh. Okay, well, I'll try one more thing. Okay. Let me quickly pivot here. To see. And if not, we'll skip it. Not the end of the world. Okay. So if you wanted to know more about this course and my instructors, in theory, there would be multiple choice questions for you here. But what should you do? What should you do if you wanted to know more about the course and instructors? Anybody? Yeah. In the back? Somebody have their hand? Yes. Watch the intro videos. Yes, thank you. There were introductory videos on the Canvas site. Please go check those out. So that was number one. Dr. A and Grace and Edgar will accept late work with a cookie, with exceptions, never in a million years. Which one of those? Do we accept late work in this class? With exceptions, yes, great, fantastic. We all understand that unexpected things happen. Just be in communication with us the sooner that you know, and we'll try to make accommodations if possible. Are milestone assignments graded? Yes, no, maybe so. Preliminary grades? Yes, preliminary grades, that's right. So essentially what's going to happen is you're going to receive a preliminary grade on your milestone assignments. That would be what you would receive on that particular portion of the project. And if you did not basically acknowledge or make changes based on the feedback that you've received. So as long as you're being responsive to feedback, you're asking questions, you're making changes, you're going to improve your project and you're going to improve that grade. We don't expect you to get it right the first time, but it's a preliminary grade. That way, by the end of this class, you all should have an A. That's the point. Okay, discussion assignments are usually due by, everyone catch that? Your first post is normally due by class on Thursday. And your follow-up is normally due by 11:59 on Friday. There are a few exceptions. I will try to remind you of those. They're in the syllabus. There's, I think, 3 exceptions out of the 6 assignments, okay? But for the most part, that's the formula. All right. If you email Dr. A or one of your lab TAs about a question, how long should I wait before I follow up with them? What was that? 48 hours. That's correct. Give us about 2 days. You know, we've got a lot of things going on in our lives, just like you all, and we'll try to be as prompt as possible, but that just gives us a little bit of a breathing room. If you haven't heard from us within 48 hours, please do email again, right? Sometimes we all need reminders. So feel free to email us again if you haven't heard from us in 48 hours. Okay, if I need help, I should. Yes, reach out, exactly. Reach out, take a look at Canvas, review the syllabus. There's going to be a lot of moving parts to this class. We will have a lot of different ways to remind you of things, but most importantly, keep in communication with your TAs, with myself, and with each other, because you'll be working in groups. So it's really important to keep that communication moving forward. Okay, so what you will learn in this class. Let's see if I can get my presenter view going again. Here we go. Okay, So we will save additional syllabus questions for the end of the class, but I'll briefly recap on some of what was in that intro video on Canvas. So DH 101 is an introduction to digital humanities, which really means getting a sense of what the field is, how it differs from other disciplines, and how the basic building blocks of digital work works. So you will not emerge from this class a programmer. If that's your intention, I'm sorry, I don't mean to disappoint. There are other classes in the DH program for that. That's not this class. But you will gain some technical skills, some really valuable technical skills, actually. More fundamentally, you'll understand how to create projects that have integrity and rigor, and how to evaluate other DH projects and other projects in general that use digital tools. So this is technically the first class in the DH minor. I think all of you are likely in the minor already or have applied to the minor. If you haven't, you get a priority in this class if you are. So, or been enrolling in this class if you are, but feel free to take a look at that on the dhucla.edu undergraduate/minor website if you are interested in learning more about the program. I also went through the program myself as a graduate student, so I'm really familiar with it, and I've worked for the program for a long time. Give me, my mask is slipping a little bit. And so if you have any questions about the program, I'm always happy to answer questions about the field in DH in general. There's a lot of activities on campus, ways to get involved. Always happy to talk about it with anybody who's interested. Okay, so now you were meant to have done our first short class reading by today from Johanna Drucker's DH course book. I hope you all check that out. If you haven't yet, it's on our assignments for today, so go check it out. Is anyone brave enough after reading that to attempt a definition at DH? There's really no wrong answer here. What is digital humanities? Anyone brave enough to venture a guess? Or in your own terms? Yes. Yeah, exactly. Humanities computer together. That's a fantastic way to put it. So I would define it as the use of digital technology to explore humanistic questions. Why explore and not solve? Well, digital humanities as a field has only been around for about 50 years, and it's only been in the last 10 or so years that the university has been offering classes on it. But in those last few years, we've really seen a lot of classes pop up. And one of the fundamental questions that DH asks is, how might scholarship look different if we thought about scholarship as something that doesn't exist as a book, right? So I thought we'd start for today with a little bit of a historical overview. There are many histories of DH, and we'll think more about that as the class goes on, about where to start a DH history. But often people start around the advent of computers in 1949 with Roberto Busa, or Father Roberto Busa, who was a Jesuit priest and was trying to analyze the complete works of Thomas Aquinas, which consists of about 9 million words. So not a small task. So he wanted to connect together expressions and quotes and compare them across the whole body of work that he was looking at. And he approached IBM for help. At that point, computers were used almost exclusively for calculations, but Busa persisted. And with IBM's help, Busa built a 56-volume concordance that allowed him to calculate word frequencies on Aquinas's work. Now that seems very basic by today's standards, right? We can use Word to do that in half a second. But at the time, it was really unheard of and revolutionary. So followed by a number of indexing projects and concordances, some experiments in determining authorship from words count followed from this particular project. More and more people were doing projects like BUSAs using card punch machines and tape-based computers to analyze texts and compute things like word frequencies and patterns. And then in 1978, a major digital humanities group, the Association for Computers and Humanities, was founded. So then in 1987, this marked an era of increased consolidation, communication, and efforts to standardize. To really think about standards within the DH field. The Text Encoding Initiative is formalized, so to standardize efforts in previous decades. They sort of looked back and went, we need to have a sort of set standard for everything. And this allowed people to have a single way to mark up elements of a text, which greatly helped with search and recall of particular kinds of information, and with interoperability across projects and systems. So people started to realize a lot of different people were working this way, and the more that we could kind of compute information in a similar way across systems, the better we would be at it, and the more that we could share that information. So then in 1992, the Institute for Advanced Technology in the Humanities is founded at UVA. The Institute is responsible for a number of pioneering projects and scholars, including projects that problematize the notion of the archive and question the primacy of the book. So we start to sort of see the beginnings of how we know DH today. Funding is always important, right? So in 2008, the Office of Digital Humanities established the National Endowment for the Humanities. And this marked a new, the Office of Digital Humanities was established at the National Endowment for the Humanities. And this marked a new visibility for digital humanities on the national stage. More schools offered classes in it, including UCLA, and more people became familiar with it. It really sort of established itself as a field that many universities were interested in offering their students. And that there was grant support for that. So those are landmarks that give us a better sense of how the field came to be. But what is the practice of DH? What does it mean to be a digital humanist? Let's start by thinking about the two terms that make up the name. Humanities, right? The study of human culture, the way humans have understood and documented what it means to be human. All across time and space. What are some humanities disciplines that you're familiar with? Can you name a few? Come on, a few humanities disciplines. Nobody? Bueller? Nobody knows that reference anymore, do they? Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Great movie, watch it. Okay. Humanities discipline, like history, what else? What's another humanities discipline? Yeah. Classics, absolutely. How about another one? Art, absolutely. Right? A few others? What's that? Yeah. Language, literature, fantastic. These are humanities disciplines, wonderful. So from the Latin word, humanitas, right, used to describe quote unquote good or quote unquote civilized people at the time when humanities was founded as a field, which is a bit uncomfortable and problematic in our more contemporary understandings of societies, but the etymology, the study of the origin of words and the way in which meanings have changed throughout history, is important and relevant to our comprehension of these structures that define the areas of study that we have today. So humanities disciplines investigate how people constructed their worlds and how the world was constructed by them. This is a set of screenshots here that we see from Google if you search humanities. What do you notice about this set of images? What stands out to you? I'm an art historian, so I like working from images. What do you note here in this sort of mishmash? No wrong answers. Yeah. Yeah, art pieces, movies. See Harry Potter down in the corner, one of my faves. What else? Historical documents, yeah. A lot of writing, right? There's a lot of stuff that has to do with writing and text. Anything else? What about the colors? What do we notice about the colors? Any art majors in the room? What kind of spectrum was on warm to cool, right? Some more warm colors. Very, very vibrant. A lot of oranges, a lot of reds. Yeah. So what you can see from these selections is the notion of the humanities is very much tied to print, to books in particular. The word gained currency after the development of the printing press, which allowed universities to produce what we know now as canons, right? What Bucer was studying, the works of the canon of Thomas Aquinas, so large sort of textual pieces. So if that's humanities, what is the digital? Any ideas? What do we see from this image search? How does this differ? What do we see here? Yeah. Yeah, as opposed to the oranges and reds, it's a very cool tone. I think I saw another hand in the back. Yeah. Sorry, a little bit louder for me. Binary, zeros and ones, excellent, yeah. Do you see any humans in here? Not really, right? No humans. Oh, welcome. So I was actually curious about the definition of digital myself, and I looked it up a while back in the Oxford English Dictionary, and according to OED, the definition of signals, information, or data represented by a series of discrete values, commonly the numbers 0 and 1, typically for electronic storage or processing, is the definition of data, according to them. So as a side note, since we brought up the zeros and ones, I'm glad you caught on to that. Binary code refers to the most basic set of instructions to a computer. And it's represented as either 0, meaning no or off, and 1 meaning yes or on. So it was originally developed first in around 300 BC, and then in the 17th century as a means of using mathematical notation to express logic statements. So obviously we can do a lot of very complicated things with computers, but at their most basic level, I should say, computers need to translate things into binary code in order to understand what it is or what they are, right? What the information is about and what to do with it. So on some levels, computers are always thinking about things in terms of yes or no. On a personal note, you can see up here, I'm a huge Star Trek fan, so this will creep in every now and then throughout our lectures, since they tackle a lot of similar issues to those in DH and their storylines. Are there any other Trekkies in the room? I'm just curious. Raise your hands, maybe identify yourselves, be brave. Okay, there's only a few of us. Okay, but that's all right. Hopefully by the end, I'll convince you all. But this picture is from one of the episodes with an alien race known as the Binars. And they operate as pairs, as you can see, and they were modeled with computer binary systems in mind. So you can watch it on Netflix if you're interested. And just one more slide on Star Trek, I promise, for this class. So Star Trek has actually shaped more tech and culture than you might have realized. So flip phones, for example, were modeled after the communicator designs on the original series. In later series like The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine, they used digital pads, which influenced the first touchscreen technologies. Literally, these designers looked to this fictional show and went, you know what, that's really cool. I really like that. That's how we're going to make the next thing in Apple design, right? It's how, or it's a show that has also been a great cultural leader, I should say. So Nichelle Nichols, who you see over here, right here, she was a communications officer on the bridge in the original series of Star Trek. And if you are into nonfiction, her autobiography is just one of the best there is. She was considering leaving the show after like the first season or so, and actually was convinced to stay by Martin Luther King Jr. because he told her how much her representation on that show was mattered. And it was touching so many people, particularly in the United States, and sort of changing the perceptions of people, and particularly in the Black community. And one direct sort of line of that representation matters is Whoopi Goldberg. She talks about the first time she saw Nichelle Nichols on that show, and she went, oh my gosh, this is something I can do. This is a person that looks just like me on TV, who's on the bridge of a starship playing a leadership role. And that influenced her in going into acting. So this is just one example of the way that Star Trek has also shaped cultural sort of phenomenon. It was the first show to show interracial kiss, the first show to show a lesbian kiss. And we actually have a large chunk of the Gene Roddenberry collection, so the creator of Star Trek, his collection here at UCLA. So his archive is something that we hold and share part of in as Bruins. Okay, anyway, science fiction has really had a profound impact on both scientific and cultural realities. And that's my Trekkie plug for today. We will leave it there. So back to this. On one hand, you've got the digital, which is cold and blue and bits and bytes, right? Computers, logic, yes, no. And on the other hand, you've got humanities, which is warm-toned, human. There's lots of human beings represented, right? It's got sort of unanswerable questions. It's untamed. It's more messy. And it's like wild. So this first question I really want to pose to you is, why would we ever bother trying to bring these two things together? What do we think we can gain by combining these two very different approaches? Anybody have a thoughts on that? What's useful about it? Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So preservation and access are key points, right? As preservation techniques sort of evolve, digital components, one of the best ways to preserve those types of things. Monuments can't always stand the test of time, but if we can LiDAR scan them, we can have a copy of them and bring it into virtual reality and sort of experience it for ourselves again, right? As if we were there. Other thoughts? Yeah.
I think maybe looking at humanities with a digital lens kind of gives you the perspective of how to view humanity.
Absolutely. It absolutely highlights the conscious choices that we're making, right, as humanists. Humanities, we often have a lot of interpretation and opinion about facts that's going on, and really that happens in all of life. And when we combine it and we have to make decisions about it in order to put it into these sort of binary systems or systems that sort of parameterize us into yes or no's, or we have to make decisions, right? We realize how messy things are, and we realize the decisions that we're making to sort of butt up against that. And it's really important. Do we have one more person that wanted to say? Did you want to say something?
You said it helps with organization.
Absolutely. Exactly. So it helps us think about how we're organizing information and helps us assess what are the sort of things that we're thinking about when we're making those decisions. So the fundamental contention of digital humanities is that there's something valuable in trying and often failing to fit the paradox and vagueness and gray areas of humanities into the small boxes of binary choices and the digital allows, right, or makes us sort of squeeze into. So digital humanities or digital humanists believe that when we try to do this, when we try to move sort of from the messy, sort of lived experience into more organized, strict spreadsheet of life, or organize things into those boxes, that we generate a productive tension between the two that forces us to examine our assumptions about our evidence and think about how evidence produces an argument, and help us to enter into conversation with all the technology that's surrounding us. So we're also thinking about the sort of apparatuses that enable us to preserve, to organize. We sort of become aware of those frameworks. It also allows us to think, well, is there a way other than a book to say what I want to say? Where is our thinking bound by the metaphor of books, right? We tend to think of our lives as chapters in a book. We tend to organize ourselves so much by the book format, but that's not necessarily the only way to organize things. Are there cases where thinking with data is more valuable than thinking with writing, perhaps? And we also think it's useful to get our hands dirty and make stuff. That there's a way in which you really understand the limits and possibilities of digital technology by making stuff in a way that you can't really get into if you don't try it yourself. So this sort of active making, active doing is critical to the practice and scholarship of digital humanities. So how are DH projects made, and how do we go about understanding them and breaking them down? Well, let's start with a bunch of different types of things that you can make. And usually DH projects will employ one or more of these methods within a project. So you have things like exhibits or exhibitions, right? Data visualizations, multimedia narratives, way of combining text and images and video. Things like digital editions, right? What does it mean when it's not a physical thing, but it lives just on a website? Text analysis. Timelines. We're going to be starting with timelines on our next class. Maps, 3D imaging, that's my field. I love extended reality technologies. We'll talk about those a little bit later in this course, right? These are all different methods other than books that we can produce when we're thinking about digital humanities. But in order to really understand digital projects and create ones of our own, we think it's important to understand the fundamental components of a digital project and the ways that one piece of the project affects the next part and the next part, right? So at its most fundamental level, every digital humanities project consists of 3 elements, and that's sources that are processed and then presented. You can break so many things down this way. It's a really, really useful way to look at digital work. So the first and foremost, there's stuff, right? There's a whole bunch of stuff. And that can be anything from images to files to numbers. And these are the things that are your sources. So it can be documents, artifacts, right? They're the primary material that you're structuring your project around. They're the things that become your data. Then there's a service level, right? Where something happens to that data to make it into data, right? You can have a collection of things, but until you sort of categorize it and number it and put it in a spreadsheet, it's not really data. You can't really do anything with it. You can't really compute it. So that service or that process section is where we organize, we query, we enhance things if they need it. We augment them. We take photographs, right? We quantify, segment, statistically process, right? This is where all that happens on the second level. And then finally, there's use and or presentation, where that data is visualized in some way and put into some form that human beings can make use of. So we'll talk about this more as the course goes on, but for now, I want you to understand that this is the fundamental way we think about digital humanities projects, right? So we go from sources to process to presentation. And presentation, like I said, could be made into something that's web accessible. It can be something that's mapped, an interactive map. It can be made searchable. These are all different ways that we can sort of take the data that we have and present it in a new way. And I want to say that this sort of process corresponds to the way that we run this class. So you'll work as teams to think about every aspect of your project, from data to interface, and you'll be expected to describe your reasons for making decisions at every level. So you'll want to be thoughtful about this process. Why did you choose the data that you chose? What did you do to your data to visualize it, to map it, to organize it, right? Maybe you get a data set and there's certain aspects that you want to focus on, so you limit it to a certain area, right? You want to make notes of that. And then you're going to present it. So then you're going to turn it into a bar or a chart or a pie graph. You're going to put it on a timeline. You're going to create a multimedia narrative, right? So these are the things that this process talks about. It's also what you're going to be doing in this class. But this can be hard or complicated to figure out, I admit. So we're going to practice it together now in class. And I discovered yesterday that this project that we were going to use has actually been sunset, meaning it's either no longer hosted, or it's been abandoned, or it's being moved. It's one of those three. But this is an opportunity, actually, for me to show you something pretty cool, and a tool that if you don't know about, you should. So now is the interactive portion of our class. How many of you know the Internet Archive and the Wayback Machine? Just show of hands. Okay, maybe a third. So this is a really cool tool. The Internet Archive is an American digital library with the stated mission of, quote, universal access to all knowledge. It provides free and public access to collections and digitized materials, including websites, softwares, applications, games, music, movies, videos, moving images, and millions of books. So in addition to its archiving function, the archive is an activist organization advocating for a free and open internet. As of 2022, the Internet Archive holds over 34 million books and texts, 7 million movies, and videos and TV shows, and 800,000 software programs, 14 million audio files, 4 million images, 1 million media files, 2 million TV clips. You get the idea. There's a lot of digital information out there. And this facility, the Internet Archive, has made it its mission to capture as much of that as possible and preserve it so that we can use it. So the Wayback Machine is a digital archive of the World Wide Web by the Internet Archive. So basically what it does is it sets out and crawls different websites and creates copies of them and preserves them. So essentially you can take an old URL and see if they've made a copy of it and review what was once there. So it's like going back in time. So we're going to do that right now together. I want you to go to archiveit.org/web. And then I want you to use the Wayback Machine up at the very top of the page and type in melancholystories.com. All right. Everybody done that? Yes? Okay. So you will start by using the timeline at the top. The longer the line is, the more of the website was captured. So we can see that back in 2016, a full capture was done of the entire website. And then we can look at the calendar dates in the month below, or in the months below, and we see that on the 22nd of March, that was the date that the most information was captured. So then we can click on one of the capture sets from that day, and you should be able to access the website itself. So essentially, you're going to see this. You're going to see the website. Is everybody there? Is everybody able to do that? So if you were to just type in melancholystories.com, you would get a 404 message. You would get a, this doesn't exist anymore. You can't see it. But if you use the Wayback Machine, you can see it as if it was there today. So start by navigating to the About page. And the About page is always a great place to start for the kind of information that we are looking for to understand the sources, the process, and the presentation of a DH project. It has become really standard practice in the DH community to highlight the sources, process, and presentation within the About section, but also just in some way across the site to bring those things and make them transparent, because DH is all about transparency. It's about reflection. And so take a few minutes now to review that About page and review the rest of the site. And then tell me what you found. Let's take a minute or two. Read up on what's there, what this project is about. Okay, and when you're ready, can someone tell me what you found. What are the sources for this project? What are the primary sources for the project? What were what are the sources? So we're doing a breakdown of the project. We're thinking about sources, process, and presentation. So first and foremost is, what are the sources? What is this project sort of founded on? Exactly, yeah. And so early modern American medical documents. And what then did they do to those documents? Yeah, so they organized them, they tagged them, they created metadata. So they took these items and they added information to them. So they made them searchable, made them findable. What else? How about presented? What did they do for presentation? Once they identified the documents they wanted to work with, once they organized them, tagged them, put them into a database system, what next? How are we accessing them? Yeah. Yes, they created a content management system to host a website so that they could be presented, right? So if you look through the About page, you'll find that they said the sources, right, were case studies on melancholia and medicine from the early modern era. So they started with these types of documents, then they transcribed them, right? They weren't all already typed up. They actually had to take those handwritten documents and type them up themselves. Then they cataloged them, they tagged them, they scanned them, annotated them, right? They sort of added their own additional layer of contextualization on top of it and organized them into these thematic exhibits. So these ways of thinking about these different documents. And then they presented it with an adaptive version of Omeka, which is a content management system for presenting database materials. So in the time that we have left, we've got about 20 more minutes. So I want you to head to Canvas and to pick one of the projects below, right? One of these projects that I think you all should have maybe reviewed for class. And then I want you to fill out the project analysis form that's presented on Canvas. I'll ask you a couple questions, but it'll walk you through this process, right? So if there's time, I'd like to volunteer, have a few of you volunteer which projects you looked at and share what you found. But let's take some time now to do that. And raise your hand if you have any questions. Everybody able to find this on Canvas? Anybody not able to find it on Canvas? Not able to find it on Canvas? Okay, let's we can quick pop out and take a look. So we go to Canvas under week 1. So if you're on modules and you scroll down to week 1 Tuesday. Yeah, of course. And then it'll be just at the bottom under assignments. Some of them may have media on that. It's okay. Let me play some media. That's okay. Yeah. Sorry, let me come around with the fan. I can't hear. Yes. Oh, it's not letting you click on any of them? Okay, let me make some adjustments. And please bear with me. I'm new to Canvas. I'm adjusting. I'm learning. I was really great at CCLE. There will probably be things like this throughout the quarter. So please just tell me and I'll make the adjustments. And thank you all for your patience with that. Let's see. Stop share for a little bit. Okay, I've updated that question. Hopefully that shows up as different now. But please let me know if you run into another issue like that. Should be saved. Okay. Is anybody else still having an issue? I think someone on Zoom is still having an issue with the question. Are other people still having issues with that question? Yeah? Okay. Good. Oh, didn't seem to save it. That's weird. All right, has anybody I'll update this question, see if it saves. That's created a whole list of things. Okay, now I think there's a lot of different options. Just either choose a number or choose one of the following below. I'll clean that up later, but apparently Canvas went crazy and gave us way too many options. But does anybody have one of the projects that they want to share the sources, the process, and the presentation of, now that you've had a chance to review one? Anybody review this one? 6 Degrees of Francis Bacon? Yeah? No? Oh, sorry. Thank you. Yeah. Let me share that again. Anybody review this one? One of the other ones? Yeah. Sure. Yeah, so primary versus secondary sources. It's a great question. So primary sources are the archival documents or the main material that they're working with as the basis of their information, where they're getting their information from. So in a networking, right, in a networking project, right, they're getting all these names from particular things, right, from particular manuscripts that they're then organizing into spreadsheets and then able to graph because of that. So you want to think about the materials, the sources. When I say sources, I'm talking about the primary sources that they're working with. And then they're doing things to them. They're transcribing them. They're organizing them in a particular fashion. So that's a great question. And secondary sources are scholarship, right? Scholarship that analyzes those sources, that adds to the interpretation of those primary sources. So that's how we think about primary versus secondary sources. And we'll talk more about that when we have a guest lecture from Zoe Borofsky in the library. But does anybody want to volunteer, if not this project, one of the other ones you've had a chance to look at? Or does everyone need more time? Yes. How do you answer number 2? So let's go to number 2. Pull it up. So question number 2, this is the one that went kind of haywire on me. But it says select your rating for the project that you're exploring. So you're picking one of the projects from above, and then you want to note 1 through 5, right? Whether you think the design is attractive and engaging, if the project is easy to navigate, it's well written, informative, if the design, no, it's repeating. That's very strange. And can you select more than one? You should be able to select more than one. You cannot. I'm going to make some more adjustments to this question. If not, just skip this question. And I will, should allow you to select more than one. Ah, I see. The original question was designed in which you could choose from a scale of 1 to 5 on each one of these sorts, these different elements. And when it switched over from CCLE to Canvas, it didn't compute right. So I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of that question for the survey, so we don't have to worry about it. Okay. That question should now not be a question, but rather just a sort of text statement to think about these things in relationship to the project. So you should be able to just move on to the next one. Okay, we only have a few minutes left of class. Does anybody want to volunteer to share the project that they've looked at? Is everyone still writing? Any more time? Okay. So as you wrap that up, are there any final questions about the syllabus that we haven't answered yet that you're curious about, you have questions about, need clarification on? No, everybody feels 100% awesome about the syllabus? Okay. Well, then with that, if you've completed the project analysis form, that's it for today. We're done for today. If you're still filling it out, feel free. You've got another 4 minutes of class. So feel free to take up that time as you need it. And on Thursday, we'll be back here and learning about timeline tools. So we'll be learning Timeline JS together in class. All right. Thank you all so much.
My name's Bryce Coleman. I'm a computer science student. And
Cool.
I'm trying to do digital humanities as my tech prep.
Okay.
And I'm desperately seeking to add this class if you're giving out these level.
Unfortunately,